Hello guys, my name is Andrew. Welcome to my channel. This video is part of a tutorial series, right? It's part of a YouTube playlist that I'm currently creating, making the teaching the MERN stack. So much value. The same app, we build the front end three times with three different stacks. We build with HTML, we build React, and then we build with Next.js 13, right? This series is just awesome. So in the previous video, in previous videos, we've done the back end, we've done HTML build, right? We've done the React.js build as well. So this video is still on the React.js build, but in the previous video, I showed you guys how to use prop drilling. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to use context API instead of just drilling your props. We are still going to need to drill props at one point or the other, but basically, we're going to use context API, right? So I'm going to show you guys how to use context API to do those stuff instead of just drilling props and making your app look messy and stressful. I'm going to show you guys how to use a better approach, which is called context API. All right, guys. Before I proceed to create the new context API project, I basically want to show you guys something. So uh, it was something I intentionally practiced. I intentionally practiced it, even though I never really brought it to the attention of you guys. But I thought it's important as I proceed to the next build. So I show you guys, right? So when working with React, when building UIs, building apps with React, you don't add logic inside your component. You don't add business logic inside your component. So what do I mean by business logic? By business logic, I simply mean as basically functions and functionalities, right? You don't add business logic inside of your component. So like a very practical use case is on the home page, right? The add profile page, the update profile page, they didn't have much to do. The add profile page totally had nothing to do with components, right? But the update profile page was not really, it didn't really have much to do with component. It was basically a dynamic page, right? So, but when you go to the home page, that's where you're going to see a very practical example of what I'm talking about. Like I said, I knew this and it's actually a practice I follow. So, but I basically want to show you guys that you should incorporate it into your workflow as well. You should make it a practice. Don't add business logic to your component. So, for example, like this handle hide overlay, I could have sorry, like this I'm coming handle set profile. For example, the data fetching. I could have fetched my data inside of the component, right? This use effect that fetches our data. There's absolutely nothing stopping me from implementing this fetch inside of my profile card component. I could absolutely implement the sorry inside of my profile card wrapper. I could absolutely implement the fetch here and then pass the prop, duplicate my card and pass the prop to the card. I could have absolutely done that here. But as a best practice, you don't add business logic into components. So you write all your business logic inside of your main page, and then you pass the relevant pieces into the components and go finish up the implementation there. So for example, let's check out the profiles data. So we fetched our data here, right? We fetched our data here and then we passed it and then we passed it to profile card, we passed it inside profile card we passed it to profile card wrapper. Then inside profile card wrapper, we went again and passed it to profile card, right? Coming we went and passed it to profile card. Yeah, we used it here, right? And then we passed it to profile. We passed the what we needed. We passed what we needed to profile card. So this is basically how you do it. Is a best practice. Is a pro tip. You don't write business logic inside of your components, right? So you write your business logic inside of the pages. Then you basically pass the necessary pieces and go do your final implementations inside of your component. So the reason for okay, let me not go explaining the reasons, but you can do your research, you can ask ChatGPT, you can read about it, why you shouldn't write business logic inside of your component. And I guess you would get very good convincing reasons why. So it's important you don't write business logic inside of your component. So keep all your business logic inside of your pages, then you pass them to go to the necessary stuffs inside of components. Right, guys? I believe you guys are following. So now, if you check out this landing page, as a result of that best practice, you end up writing so much business logic inside of your homepage, and you end up passing props a whole lot. This project is not really a simple project, considering how the build has been. It's not really simple. It's just an awesome project that has really helped me to teach the MERN stack and to teach React.js in such a beautiful way. Right, guys? So the fact that we followed this best practice simply mean we had to pass props a lot. So, for example, we had to pass three props to the profile card wrapper. From the profile card wrapper, we now went and we from the profile card wrapper, we went ahead and then we passed props again, right? We passed all of these props, right? This was basically necessary, but these two we had to do the passing. Right, guys? We couldn't write the logic here because of that best practice, but then we had to pass the props. So the problem of prop drilling can really be it is indeed a problem. Why? Because this is just a three-level prop drilling. From the home page, we passed to the profile card wrapper component, right? And then from the profile card wrapper component, we passed again to the profile card component and we receive our props and we finished up our stuff. But the problem is, what if we had another component inside of this profile card that we needed to pass data to, right? So, I mean, having to keep passing data is just not the best as your app keeps growing. So, what do you do? What to do is to use another method, and the first method is to use the context API. The context API is an API inside of React. It is inbuilt into React. It helps you manage state and solve this problem with ease, right? All right, guys. Uh, I really want to make things very, very easy. I want to make things very simple for you guys. I want you guys to really understand React Context API because it's important that you understand it. All right. So, explaining React Context API. What is React Context API? Here's an article from the Copycat blog, right? This is the link over here. Copycat, copycat.dev. Let me zoom in so you guys can see the link. Oh gosh, I can't zoom in. I can't zoom in with the screen. Oh gosh. All right. So it's basically copycat.dev /blog /react context. So if you zoom in, I believe you should be getting a good view of the URL so you can check out the blog, right? So this is what I just want. I want to use this image to explain React Context API to you guys. So just like I talked about earlier, we have been drilling props. So from let's use the data fetching example, right? Let's go back to the home component. We fetched our data inside of this use effect. So we passed the prop to our profiles data, right? We made this profiles data variable to carry the data. Sorry, we didn't pass prop here. We just gave it the data. We set it to state, and then we now pass the prop here to profile card wrapper. We passed again to profile card, right? So we passed twice. What if we needed to pass extra? Probably one more component, two more components. It's needless burden, right? So that was basically what we did. We passed and then we kept on passing. From this, we passed again, right? We had three levels. From the home, we passed to the profile card wrapper. From the profile card wrapper, we now passed to the child component, right? So with this approach, it's not really the best. Okay. So the solution is what I'm teaching you guys in this video, context API. So how does context API work? Context API gives you a wrapper around all of your components. So you basically wrap you create a wrapper and then you wrap the whole of your app. Let me show you guys from the demo build. No, it's main.jsx. So this is not the context API build. This is the context API build. We go into source and then main.jsx. So this is the wrapper. This is the wrapper you create, right? Home context provider. So you can create as many wrapper as you want, but basically when the wrappers become too much, it becomes an ugly scenario. So you need to manage things like sorry guys, you need to manage things, you need to learn the pro tips in managing context, right? So with each of these methods comes their pros and their cons. So you keep needing one other method to solve one problem or the other, right? So what context API does, it gives you a wrapper. So in this case, this home context provider is the wrapper. So it's inside of our main.jsx file, which is our main JSX file, the main wrapper of our whole app, right? Which then supplies to the index.html, the single index file where every other thing happens inside of this root div, right? So coming up back to this very main JSX file, we have our app, which is basically what contains the whole of our project, right, guys? We have our app component, and then we wrap our app component with this home context provider. So I really want you guys to understand this, and I pray you guys really understand it as well as possible, right, guys? So what is context API? It basically gives you a wrapper. I've showed you guys the wrapper inside of the app. We're going to implement it in just a bit. So this is basically the wrapper, this blue area. It wraps everything together, right? So when it wraps everything together, this area, this blue area here is where your logic basically stays. So your logic stays around this blue area. It's just basically an illustration, right? You can use a cycle, whatever. But basically this area, this blue area is where your logic stays. So your logic stays here. Your logic is no longer going to stay inside of one component. You might need to keep some logic inside of parent components, and yeah, even while using context API, you might still need to pass some few props, right? Those that you can't really handle with context API. But when you're using context API, you keep as much of your logic outside, right? So your logic stays inside the context API provider, inside the parent which wraps your whole app. So this is the wrapper, right? Like I showed you guys, it wraps your whole app, and then your logic stays here. So when you need a logic now, you a logic basically a function or whatever, right? When you need any logic, you don't need to pass as prop from inside the parent component to the child component again. You basically tap from inside of this context which wraps your whole app, tap into any component. So tap from here to here, tap from here to down here, tap from here to down to this, right? You can tap from this context, this open space, which is your context wrapper. You can tap into any component, tap to this, tap to this, tap down to this, right? You don't need to pass through inside of any of the parents again. So you basically get a wrapper, more like a roof. So if I want to pick what I want, I don't need to go pass through my parent anymore. I just pick from the roof, right? It's just like a wrapper around them. You tap what you want directly without needing to go through your parent, right? So the logic stays here. Even the parent can access it the same way. The child can access it the same way, right? So that's basically context API. It's normal. It's just a different way of passing props. You can receive a prop through context API into a parent and drill it into a child if you wish. So it's just a normal way of passing props. Your logic stays outside inside of this blue area. Then you receive your logic directly into without passing this. You just go through, go aside, right? You receive your logic directly. You pass into each of this, pass to this. You don't need. I repeat, you don't need to have anything to do with the parent, right? Except if it's necessary. You basically receive from the empty the wrapper. You receive into this, you receive into this, you receive into this, right? You don't need to go outside, right? It stays inside of the wrapper. So I'm just doing my best, guys, to make you guys understand this. All right, guys. So let's do this. Let's get this done. All right, let's knock out this React context API build. Okay, guys. So how do we get started? First things first, our demo app is currently running, and then our new app, which we're going to use, is as well running. Yeah, demo is running twice. Let's remove one. So we have just one instance of our demo, and then sorry, not the demo, the initial React.js build, right? This is the initial React.js build, and then this is our new build, which we want to duplicate the app into, and then after duplicating the app, we then implement context API for it, right? So let's just find a way to duplicate our app. I think the best thing to do is to delete the node modules folder. So let's delete node modules folder. The public folder remains the same, right? Just basically this. The public folder remains the same. Then let's go and copy the content of the source folder. So we copy assets, we copy components, we copy pages, right? So we copy all of these components of the source folder. We close this, right? So we come to the source folder here, and then we delete its own components. right? We delete its own components. We delete them, right? So we get them deleted, and then we paste the content of the source folder that we copied from up there, right? So we now have the source folders looking alike, public folder similarly. Then we go copy these other files as well. So let's copy all these files, right? Let's copy all these files. So basically, I'm just trying to duplicate the app. I could have done this off screen, but somebody out there might not really know how to do this, right? So let's help everyone to be on the same page. So we delete all of these. Let's hope it doesn't break our app. And once we delete all of that, right, we now paste the new content, right? So we paste this. So we basically pasted the content coming from this other folder. So by now our app should have broken, right? 5174, the app is broken. Let's go back over here. Let's go back over here. So what do we do now, right? We don't have a node modules folder. We have a vit folder, package.json. All right. Hopefully we'll get this deleted later on. So we have everything in here now, right? Yeah, we basically have everything. We don't need trash. We have everything, right? If we need it, we can create a new one. So we have, I think we can delete this, can we? Yeah, let's delete this. Yeah, so I guess we've deleted that. It's still showing, but let's just hope it goes. All right, let's just ignore that folder. Let's get done with what we want to get done first. So I'm basically trying to duplicate the app. Now we have the package.json file, we have the package log.json. I think we can delete the package log.json as well. All right, then let's leave the package log.json, should we? Right, I don't think it will give us any issues. So let's leave the package.json file. The next thing, sorry guys, the next thing we want to do is to install all dependencies, right? So we deleted the node modules folder. So now it's basically the same way when you clone a project from GitHub, right? When you clone a project from GitHub, it doesn't come with the node modules folder, right? You don't push node modules to GitHub just like we did in the HTML build. And I'm going to deploy this context API build to GitHub and to Vercel. So you guys are going to see we don't push node modules. Basically, you don't even find it inside of your source control area. You don't find node modules. Why don't you find node modules? Because node modules is ignored. So if you go to your git ignore, you're going to see this line. So node modules is basically ignored, right? So the whole node modules folder is ignored. You don't push it to GitHub. So when you clone a project from GitHub, what you basically need to do is to run npm install. When you need to enter the project directory first, right? Then you run npm install. Npm install looks into your package.json file and it installs all the dependencies and dev dependencies for you. So you basically don't need to you don't need to start running around and struggling about how to go about it. The moment you clone a project, just run npm install. It looks into your package.json and gets all the dependencies installed to make your app run as smooth as possible. So we don't have node modules. We don't need it. npm install will bring it for us. So now let's basically bring out our console and run npm install and let's hope our app works. We need to first of all go to the React client, right? We need to first go to the React client folder. And then once we enter the React client folder, we can now run npm install, right? So let's hope our app doesn't break. So npm install installs all the dependencies it can find inside of our package.json file for us, right? So like I said, I can do this off screen, but I'm basically just trying to help somebody out there who might not know this to get to see what we are doing. So you can see it has brought node modules, basically looking into our package.json, installing the content we need, and then certainly bringing the node modules folder. So let's wait for our files to get fully loaded. So once the installation is complete, we're going to run our app and see if our app works just fine. All right, guys. So now our installation is complete. We have our node modules folder. We have node modules, of course. So let me see if I can delete this folder. Just this, we don't need that, right? Okay, it's gone. So now we can run our app and let's hope everything works just fine. npm run dev. So now we should get a direct duplicate of the previous app, right? Right, 5175. Let's check that out. Okay, let's uh let's get the new app to show in our browser. You hold your control key and you click this, so it shows in your browser. So let's ensure our app runs. It should be exactly this app, right? So perfect, exactly this app is working. So we now have an exact duplicate of our React.js client app, right? So in case you want to duplicate an app, that's basically what you need to do. So we can rename our app inside of this. Let's just rename it quickly. We call it context API, right? We call it context API, right? So we really don't need to do this, but no problem, it's fine. Good. So we are done. Our app is running. Okay. So now we want to begin to knock out context API. I want to show you guys how things would go differently inside of a context API React.js project. So the first thing we are going to do, I've explained context API in so much detail already. The first thing we are going to do is to create a new folder inside of our source. We're going to call that folder context, right? So we create the context folder, and then, like I said, you can create as many contexts as you want. So we can create a context for the ad profile. All the logic for the ad profile page will stay there. Then we wrap the whole app. Then we wrap the whole app with the app provider, like I showed you guys. We wrap the whole app with the context wrapper, right? And then as we wrap the whole app, we can now be able to access the contents of the ad profile context, right? So we can now access the logic, the functions, and whatever of the ad profile context. So we can create as many contexts as we want: ad profile context, home context, update. We can create as many contexts. All we simply need to do is to ensure that for each context we create, we wrap our app with it, right? Let's go back to the demo build. So you guys can see we created only one context here, the home context. So we have only one context, but if we created another context, we also need to bring it down, and then probably we call it add profile context, right? We need to import it like this one, right? Import it, and it doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist, but I just want to show you guys stuff, right? So you basically wrap your app again with it. So for all the context you create, simply wrap your app with any context you create. So we don't have this, it doesn't exist, right? But I'm just showing you guys that you can create as many contexts as you want, and then all you need to do is to wrap your app with those contexts. So let's go back to React.js client, the context API build. Sorry, this is the demo build. Let's go to our own build, right? Let's do this. We can. All right. So we have now created our context folder, right? So the next thing, we have only one context. We are going to create only one context. So we call it home context, right? Home context.jsx is going to be a JSX file. Good. So now we have our home context.jsx. So good. Creating implementing context API in a React project is easy. You just need to practice it, go through it one time, two times, and three times. And I don't think you even need up to three times. With the way I'm going to teach you guys in this tutorial, I strongly believe you guys will really get a very good understanding of it, to the point that next time you won't really struggle much, right? So the first thing first, we need to create our context, create the content of the context, then go and wrap your app with that context. So first, we have created the context, set it up, right? Set the context up, create its content. Then you go to the main.jsx, wrap your app with that context, right? So to to start any context API project, you need to import what is called create context from React. We are going to need use state as well. Let me take out this use state. Let's go very progressively so you guys can understand things. So I import create context from React, and then now I want to, okay, I import create context. I want to export my context, and I'm exporting it as home context. You guys should just follow along. I'll be as detailed as possible. So, right? We call it home context, right? So create context. So now we have basically invoked create context. We didn't just invoke it, we exported it directly. So our home context is basically this, right? So this is what we are going to be importing into the component and getting our wrappers from, and getting our logic from. So this is basically the context stuff itself. This is what we hold our logic, and this is where we are going to be destructuring our logic from. Don't worry, you guys are going to see. So good. We're done with our export. So we bring in our component, right? We call it home context provider, home context provider, and then it's basically a component, right? It's basically a component. Then so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to return home context, right? We call it home context dot provider, right? Home context dot provider, that is it. So this is where we pass our functions into, right? We pass our logic. After we write our logic, all our logic are going to stay here. Then inside of here we pass our logic, we keep passing our logic. Then, right, I mean, just as props, we pass our logic as props. We'll pass the children here. Then we'll pass our logic, our business logic, our functions, and what have you. We'll pass them as props. After we pass them as props, then we pass the children prop here. So we are going to wrap the home context provider. If you go back to um our main.jsx, we're going to wrap the whole app. I've showed you guys that more than once. We're going to wrap it with the home context provider. So our main.jsx, remember the children props, our main.jsx, I don't know if I showed you guys the children prop, did I? So the children prop is a special prop in React. Why is it special? It's special because you don't need to you don't need to give it a name. It's basically anything you wrap a component with, any other component you wrap a component around, because becomes the children prop. I'm going to show you guys practically. So let's export this component. We would have used that shortcut, but it's fine. Let me show you guys everything gradually. I want you guys to really understand this. So our context is basically set up already, right? So we have created our context, right? We brought in create context, we invoked it, and then this is where, like I said, this is what we'll be importing and receiving our logic, and this is where we pass all our logic as props. So this is basically how the context API works. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to import our home context into the main.jsx, our home context provider, and then after importing it, we're going to place it around our app component, right? So let's go home context provider. This is the provider we get, and then we place our app into it, right? So this is basically how you use the children prop. If for any reason, the children prop, if for any reason you need to pass a component into another component, the component you pass into this parent component becomes its children prop. That you don't need to pass it here. You pass your regular props here, but the children prop, you pass the children prop inside of you basically call that component, right? You, in this case, you don't call it once. Normally we call components like this, right? You just put the forward slash and that does it, right? But when you want to pass children props, you kind of make the component to have a closing, more like a closing tag, right? It's not really a closing tag, but you make it like this so that you can now pass this new app into it. And then once you pass it inside of that parent component, which is this, this automatically becomes its children prop, right? So this is the component, the parent component, this, right? This is it, this is the component, right? So this is the component, the home context provider component. So anything we pass into it, anywhere we call it at all. So we called it inside of our main.jsx and we passed app into it. So app is automatically its children prop. So as usual, this is how we get props with the structure prop. The children, like I said, is a special prop. You don't name it, you don't create it. Whatever you pass inside of that component, like we did here, becomes its children prop. So that is why we destructure children, and then as we've destructured children, we can now be able to go into JavaScript land and pass children here. So as we write more, the function is going to look more like a regular component function, and it's going to look, I believe you are going to understand it better that way, right? So the children prop is not unique. I repeat, is not unique to the context API or the home context provider component. So it's general for React, right? So our context API is ready. We can begin to write logic. And then, as simple as it is, that is how you're going to understand context API very much easier. So, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write some logic. So, I'm going to write a very simple logic. I'm going to write a function, right? I'm going to write no need for async, just a simple function, right? Let me just use array function. Sorry. Uh, test test function. So let me call it test function. So test function, const test function. Gosh, should I take a break? All right, guys, we can do this. So test function is equal to our array function, right? Test function is equals to our array function. So what I basically want this function to do is to just alert hello world, right? Is just to alert hello world. That's basically what this function does. So I'm basically showing you guys here how the context API is going to work. So we have wrapped our whole app with this home context provider. So now we have that wrapper already. That wrapper that I showed you guys inside of that article. All right, good. So this is the wrapper. This blue square is the wrapper. Is the home context provider. So now I've wrapped our app with the home context provider. Our app is now the children, right? So we have the test function. We now pass any logic we write. We pass it to this home context provider. We pass it as the value prop, and this is JSX. You need to first of all go into JavaScript land, and then you pass it into an object. So first of all, the first call is going into JavaScript land. Then the next call is you creating an object, passing your function into it, right? Inside of the navbar component, we can now import, inside of home context, we imported create context. Now, wherever we want to catch something from our context wrapper, we import use context. So create context and use, we create over there, and in here we want to use. So anywhere you want to get a context value, you simply import use context, right? So you simply import use context. Good. So going back to our home context, you see this guy that we exported, this home context variable that we exported is what we are going to import and then destructure any logic we want from. So let's go back to our navbar, right? We go back to our navbar. We're now going to import the home context from that, our context file, right? So let's go this way, import that. I repeat, this home context that we exported, this one that we exported is what we are importing now, right? It's a named export, so we use this destructure pattern. Sorry, what's this name? Its name is home context, right? Home context. Good. So now I've imported the home context. So if I want to get any logic at all, I've passed only one logic. You guys will see we'll pass a lot of logics to that home context or provider component or whatever. We'll pass a lot of logic, and then anywhere we go, we can destructure the logic we want and use. So now I've passed the test. I created the test logic, right? I created the test function, which is just a logic to help us test. So come over here. I can now destructure what I want. Let's comment this. We are basically done with our build. We don't need console logs for production. So now let's do we now destructure any of the logic we want. So in this case, it is test what did I call it again? I called it test function. So test function is what we want. So test function is equal to use context, good, home context. So this is how you do it. So you have now destructured the test function logic from the home context. I didn't need to pass prop. I didn't need to pass any prop because it is a wrapper. It is basically this blue wrapper. That logic, that test function logic is now inside of this blue area. I can receive it inside any of these components without going into any parents to pass props or whatever, right? I hope you guys are understanding. So now let's invoke this. Let's add it to this guy. Let's add it to this counter, right? So let's basically add an on-click functionality. On-click. So you go with test function. So you can now invoke test function, right? So I've saved. Now let's go back to our build. I think we need to close one of the builds so we don't make mistakes. We can close this now. So we know we are running, our app is running on the 7.5, right? So let's hit and see if our context API is working. It's working, right? So we didn't have to pass a prop and then we are able to get logic, right? So our context API works just fine. All right, guys. So we are now ready to begin copying our logic and bringing into our our home context file, right? But before we proceed, I want to share a caveat. Don't implement use effect inside of your context. Don't implement use effect inside of your context. Always keep use effect inside of your components. Why? Because if you implement use effect inside of your context, it's global. It can affect the way your app behaves, right? So let's check out our homepage and see which logic we can bring in so we can begin to test and be sure that everything is working fine. I think we can bring in the show overlay logic, right? The show overlay and hide overlay logic. Let's implement those ones first of all. So show model, show overlay, right? Yeah. Show overlay, hide overlay, and let's start with these two. So we copy the state as well, right? I'm coming. Handle show overlay, handle hide overlay. So it's basically this, right? It's only this. So we cut it out, right? We're already implementing our context. So it's use state, right? It's use state. So we bring it here, right? I'm taking things step by step. So it's use state. We need to import use state, right? Sorry, we need to import use state, right? So it's use state. We need to import. We've imported use state. Okay. We now have this variables here. So let's go copy the function. So that logic is now going to be shared. Any profile, any component at all can receive this logic and trigger the show overlay and hide overlay for us. Let's go implement it, guys. Let's go. It's better done than said in this case, right? All right. So it's already showing us an error here. Undo delete profile. Okay, good. Let's go and implement. We're going to come back and catch. We're going to come back and show. I paste this. So good. So now we have three logic crying to be sent out. They are already crying out, hey, you're not calling us. We want to now send them out. So we can now comfortably remove this test function, right? We have used it. We can now comment it out. Let's pass the show overlay first. Yep. And then let's pass handle show overlay. Handle show overlay. Handle show overlay. Control Z, handle show overlay, handle. Oh gosh, uh let's ignore code whisperer, right? So we now have all these logic variables, logic functions, we have them passed as value prop to our home context provider. Same way as we got that test function into the navbar, same way we can get all of these into the landing page, right? And into any other component we want. Absolutely into any other component, guys. That's how cool the context API is. So we come up here, same way we import, first of all, we import home context. Remember, that home context that we exported as a named export, that is what we import, and then we destructure any logic we want from. So let's come over here. Now we are going to, first of all, let's work with it and hope it gets imported. No, don't worry, let's go and import it ourselves. So import home context, thanks autocomplete. So we want to destructure our what do we have? Let me see. Inside of our home context, we have show overlay, right, to test if it's true or false, and then we have these two function to hide and to show. So let's go into our landing page, and then we destructure show overlay. Is it handle show overlay or just, yeah, first of all we need show overlay, and then I think we need handle show overlay as well, right? Handle show overlay and handle hide overlay. So handle hide overlay and then handle show overlay as well. So we basically have gotten those three. This is just a variable, and then these guys are logics. We've gotten them from our context, right? Okay, is equals to, we're not done yet, is equals to use context, right? We haven't imported use context. We're going to import it as well. Remember, anywhere you want to, before we created, we used the create context, right? So to use any value from that context, from any context at all, you need to import the use context hook, right, guys? So this is how you simply use your logic. So why is this, it's going to go silent, don't mind it. Use, okay, we imported it twice, we imported it already. So right, guys, so we got this logic, we got all of this. So now we basically, let me see, what did we do with those? We used our show overlay to check, and then if it's true we flex, if it's not, if it's bad, if it's not true we hide, and then the handle overlay, and then the handle delete, sorry, the handle hide overlay, and then the handle show, the, where is it, and then we passed handle show overlay to our profile card wrapper, and we went and passed it to our card wrapper again. So you guys are going to see we're going to get done with this. We basically don't even need handle show overlay inside of this place anymore. We are going to go and receive it directly inside of our card wrapper. That's awesome, guys. So don't worry, let's leave it for now. Yeah, let's remove it from here. Let's remove it. Let's save. We basically need show overlay and handle hide overlay here, right? Yeah, we need to hide because our overlay is here. So when we click on it and it shows, we hide inside of our overlay, but the click that makes it show is inside of our profile card, right? So in this case, we had to drill our prop. We had to go through profile card wrapper first, and then pass it to from profile card wrapper, we had to go through profile card wrapper, right? And then we passed it to card wrapper, to, sorry, to profile card. Before we now went into profile card, we destructured it, right? Handle show overlay, we destructured it, and then we now went and passed it to the button that caused it to show, right? So we don't need to do all those prop drilling anymore. Isn't that awesome, guys? So inside our home, we still have this error because we need to remove this. We don't need to drill props anymore. We can simply go into our profile card directly. I mean, this is cool. We go directly, and then once again, we import use context, right? Because we want to use our context. We import use context, right? We import use context, we import use context from React, right? So we import it, and just like I've explained to you guys, we import that home context variable that we exported as named export. So we call it home context, right? We import home context. Oh gosh, it's supposed to be up, not here. So we import home context, and inside of this place, we destructure the logic that we want, right? We destructure whichever logic we want from that home context variable. We want the show overlay, the handle show overlay logic, right? Sorry, this is what we want. And then over here, we bring in use context, right? Use context, and then we wrap home context with it. So once we save, we get our handle show overlay function inside of profile card directly. But now we have it, we are still receiving it as prop, right? So we don't need it as prop anymore. We are receiving it directly from our home context. The from our home context, right? That's context wrapper. We're receiving it from that home context wrapper. this is cool, guys. Let's go test it out. So let's go back to our app and let's test our logic. Let's refresh. You guys will see our logic is going to work just the same way. No thanks. Just the same way, right? But in this case, we are no longer drilling props. So let's go back again. So I guess we are getting settled. You guys are understanding what we're doing now. All right. So is that all we need to do from our, let's see, handle set profile to lead? Okay, good. We're going to take this guy as well from the landing page. So let's go back to our home context. Are we done with this? I guess we are done with this. So the next thing we are going to implement inside of our home context, we are going to now implement the delete functionality inside of our home context. So we go back to our home page, we bring in this we get all of these functions that are related to the delete functionality, right? We cut all of them and then we go into our home context and then we come over here again, we paste them. Remember, keep all use effects inside of the component. I'm going to show you guys. But state, yeah, you definitely will need to declare state. You might not need to, but basically, let's keep going. You guys will get to see everything. So I don't know if we are going to have such an instance where we will not need to declare state, but don't worry. I believe you guys are going to get so much value, so much value. And I mean, I believe you guys are really going to understand context API from this tutorial. So we have those logic related to the delete profile functionality here already. Now let's go back to the home page and let's see how we can get all the logic from the home page. So let's forget about this for now. So we copy this logic as well, handle set profile, and then handle delete profile, right? I think so. I'm coming, let me see. Handle set profile, handle delete profile. So we copy these two, we cut them from here, and then we go to our home context, and then we can now boldly delete this, and then we can paste those guys. So we now have our handle delete functionality and our handle set profile functionality all inside of our home context wrapper, right? Now let's go back to the home page and see how those guys work. So we need to bring in is profile deleted, right? We need to bring in is profile deleted and also set is profile deleted. We need to bring them here, right? We need to bring is profile deleted and set is profile deleted. So let's pass them. So handle, okay, this is handle set. So is profile deleted, set is profile deleted. We need these two guys inside of the landing page. Let's go back and check that out. So we need set is profile deleted and then we need is profile deleted. Okay, I think we need the handle delete function as well. Good. We need the handle delete profile function as well. So let's go back and then let's pass them as well as values. I'm coming, we are done with handle show overlay, handle hide overlay, right? Good. So let's pass them. We need is profile deleted, right? And then we also need set is profile deleted, right? And then we also need handle delete profile, right? So good. We have passed these guys again. Now we can go back into our landing page, right? And then we basically receive them just the way we received these two, we receive those three as well. Let's go and copy them. So is profile deleted, set is profile deleted, and this. So we go home. We need those three on the home page. You basically receive the variables and logic you need on any page. You just get out those ones. You don't need to get everything on every page, just the ones you need. So we no longer have that crying noise. We still have an error here. Set is profile deleted. Either include it or remove the dependency array. Don't worry, we're going to fix that, guys. All right, guys. So we have all of this. We have the is profile deleted variable coming, and then we have this logic. We have the handle delete profile logic as well. So we've basically extracted this logic from the home page and added it to our home context. But in our home context, we are having an error. We have not installed Axios. So let's install Axios, right? Sorry, guys. We have already installed Axios. So let's import Axios from Axios, right? So we import Axios from Axios. That should stop crying. Then the handle set profile to delete logic. We need to pass it, right? The handle set profile to delete logic is executed by the is executed by the profile inside of the profile card, right? handle set profile to delete is executed by this on click event on this delete profile button. So as well, we remove it from the prop, and then we basically pass it over there and we get it here. So let's first of all get it, handle set profile to delete. I save, and then we come over to the home context. I pass it as well, right? So handle set profile to delete, right? So I've passed it. We should be receiving it inside of the card component directly now. Go back to profile card. We didn't have to go drill prop. We see we're not receiving that as prop again. We just needed to receive it directly from our home context wrapper, right? So now we go back to our home component. It's going to be crying that, oh, you're not passing this prop. We're going to tell it we don't need to pass the prop anymore because we already have it inside of our the card component directly thanks to our home context provider. All right, guys. So we have this. Our use effect is still crying that our set is profile deleted is a dependency we should add, but let's ignore it for now. Let's go back to our app and test if our logic works. So we basically copied out the delete logic, right? We copied out all the delete logic. You can see there's no delete logic again. It's basically these implementations, right? Set is profile deleted, false is profile deleted, right? So everything is not here again. It's coming now from the home context provider. So I've saved. Let's refresh and then we see if our delete functionality works just fine. So let's start with this. I hit this. No thanks. It works. I hit this. Let's say yes, delete, and let's see what happens. It works just fine, guys. It works just fine. Even though we are no longer drilling props, it works just fine. This is awesome, guys. We don't have any error in our console. We have something coming, profile card wrapper. Let's go clean up our logs, right? So profile card wrapper. Let's go clean up our logs. I think we logged something here. Good, we logged something here. Let's clean it up. Right, so we don't need our console logs in production. Let's remove. Right, so I guess the next, let's refresh and see if it shows this again. Right, so we don't have it coming in our console anymore, but our delete functionality worked even though we are no longer drilling any props. Right, guys, so the next thing we are going to do, handle show overlay. We are still passing handle show overlay. We're no longer passing it from the home page, right? We're no longer passing handle show overlay to our profile card wrapper. So it's basically pointless leaving it inside of that. We're now receiving this content directly from our home context wrapper, right? So I can boldly remove this too. We're now receiving them directly from our home context wrapper. So our app is becoming cleaner, right? I guess we're almost done. I don't know. Okay, so then the final thing we want to do, I want to show you guys how we're now going to implement the data fetching logic. Like I said to you guys, avoid adding use effect inside of your context just because of the mounting and unmounting behavior of React. So keep your use effect inside of your home page. Keep all your, sorry, not your home page, your home component, right? I mean the parent component, the page component, right? That is the parent. So always keep your use effect inside of the page component, which is the parent component. Go ahead and extract every other logic into your context wrapper, right? So now, how are we going to implement the data fetching logic so that we can take off all of this from this place, right? So to implement that, we are basically going to remove this final variable from here. We cut it, right? And then we go and paste it inside of our home context, right? So we paste that variable inside of our home context and then set profiles data and set profiles data. We'll pass, I think we need both inside of our landing page, right? I'm coming, profiles data, set profiles data. What we want to do now is we want to basically we want the only thing we are going to do inside of our landing page to be setting it and basically receiving it as well, right? So let's go back here. We pass both of them as props, right? We want both of them to be available globally. That's why we are adding them inside of our home context. So both the profiles data and our set profiles data will be available inside of our home context, but then we are going to set them we're going to set the profiles data. We're going to set it uh, inside of our home component, but profiles data will be available globally. So this is the only thing we are going to pass to the home component. We're definitely going to pass both to the home component, but then this guy will be available globally for all the other components to receive from here without prop drilling, right? So don't worry, let's implement that. In this case, like I said, it's better done than said. So profiles data, set profiles data. Let's pass both of them, right? Set profiles data, and then we pass profiles data as well, right? Profiles data. Good. So we save. We now have the two going out. So now we go back to our home page. In our home page, we implement our data fetching, right? We implement our data fetching, but then we set back this data we have fetched to that component that we have inside of the global scope. So let's receive it so we can be able to do the setting. So we set profiles data, right? Good. So we receive set profiles data from that global scope inside of our home context, and then we are able to pass this data we have fetched to it. It's not here, right? This is fascinating. It's not inside of this place, but then we are able to receive this ability, this variable that enables us to set it. We are able to receive this variable, and then we're able to set our fetched data to that profiles data variable. So this is awesome, guys. We now have access to that profiles data variable globally. Okay, so we certainly need that profiles data here, do we? I don't know if we need that profiles data. We don't need profiles data here, so we remove profiles data. We are going to receive them directly inside of those components. So I've saved. So let's go back to our, what do we have? Our homepage is still showing us an error. Where's our error coming from? Okay, we have an error up there. Okay, good. We no longer have any use. We're no longer using use state inside of this place, right? So we no longer have error inside of our landing page. Just this dependency cry here. Let's go back to our home context. We now have this is already set. We have already set it from the home page. Remember, this is the home context. So we want our use effect to remain on our home page. We don't want to bring it here, but then we want to set our data inside of that use effect and be able to pass our data globally to any component, right? So we've passed profiles data already, but we didn't need it inside of our home component, right? We don't need profiles data to do anything here. We just needed to set it, right? Because the home component is what wraps all the other components. So that is why you need use effect to remain in the home component, right? Because it's the parent. So the mounting and unmounting of components, if you place your use effect inside of the context, it can affect the way your app works, right? Right then. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now receive our profiles data directly into those components. We don't have profiles data here again. We are not passing it to any component either, right? We're basically just rendering those components on this page. We receive their data directly from the global scope. So let's go receive data here. So we don't need profiles data coming from here again. We can now receive, we don't even need any prop at all. We can now receive profiles data directly from our global state, our global scope, right? So profiles data, right? Good. So we can now receive profiles data globally, and our app is going to work just fine. Equally, we still need to that was what I guess I talked about this earlier. We still need to receive our profiles data inside of profile card wrapper, because this is where we need to do the mapping. So this is the only place we are going to pass props. All right, guys, we don't need props again, so we can remove this, and then I'm going to get our data from our home context, right? So home context, and then we can now destructure profiles data from home context, right, guys? So we destructure profiles data from home context, right? We destructure profiles data from we bring in use context, right? We bring in use context, and then we destructure yeah, we get it from home context, right? So guys, this is it. I'm coming. We don't need props again. We don't need this again. We haven't imported use context. We already imported use context, but we're having an error. Profile card wrapper, a React function component or a custom. We start with, oh gosh, we have an issue here. This should be a capital letter, right? It should be capital letters. Gosh, all our components should start with capital letters. So we need to rename this. We need to rename it, right? All our components should start with capital letters, guys. Let's go back to our homepage and then let's correct the name, right? So profile card wrapper, I guess it's corrected. So all our components should be named as uppercase, should start with uppercase, right? So profile card wrapper, fine. We no longer have the error. Then the next thing we are going to do is we already have our profile data coming in, so we are done with this component. So now we can't receive the profile data directly to profile card because we needed to perform a map here to duplicate our profile card. So we'll use profiles data here, and this will be the only place that we're going to pass props. Right, guys? This is us implementing this, and it's just so beautiful, right? So we have a handle show overlay, we have a handle hide overlay, we have a handle set profile, we have all of this logic. We can delete this, right? We don't need console logs inside of our app, inside of our production deployment. I'm going to show you guys how to deploy this to Vercel, of course. So let's go back to our home.jsx. Let's see, is there anything else we need to do here? Okay, guys. So I guess to solve this, we'll basically just add the dependencies is crying out for, right? Those dependencies are basically not going to change, right? They're not Boolean values. They're just basically logic. So, but it's crying because we use them inside of this use effect. So set profiles data is used here, and then set is profile deleted is equally used here. So that is why the use effect is crying. So now our use effect is no longer crying like a baby. Let's check out our app, right? We're having an issue now with our app. Let's refresh, right? Let's refresh and go fix our bug. Right, I guess there was no bug. Probably our app was yet to reload. Let's go back and save. We save. Let's save on all three pages. Right, let's go back to the update profile page and save. So the update profile page does not have a component, so we don't need to create a context for it, right? Its logic can stay here. Similarly with the add profile component, the add profile page, their logic can stay here. But the main thing happened with the home page, right, guys? So we have basically done. Let me see. Let me see if we are done. I guess we're done, guys. Undo fetch data, right? Is our undo fetch data coming? Undo I okay, undo fetch data is inside of here. So guys, this is it. Right? This is it, guys. This is it. We are done. We have implemented this with context API. One reason why I strongly believe you guys are gonna grab this is because of the way I taught it, right? The way I started it, I was kind of slow. Showing the very first that test function is what actually gives you a clear understanding of context API. That very first test function, it's easy, right? You basically create your setup, set up your context, go into your main.jsx, wrap your app with the context, having understanding of the children prop, so the app becomes children. Everything inside of app becomes the children. So going over here, we have successfully wrapped the whole context provider with our children, which is our app. So all of this values, all of this logic and variables are accessible to any component inside this children, which is inside of app, right? So from your beginner level to intermediate, you will hardly meet projects that require more than create context. Sorry, that require more than context API, except if the project is big. But even big projects, you can still stick with context API if you manage it properly, right? Especially projects that don't need much scaling. You can stick with context API. But if you know this project requires to be scaled in the future, then I think it will be better to use a state management library like Redux Toolkit. I don't use Redux. You can use a state management library like Redux Toolkit. Zostand is actually becoming popular. Just any state management library that you wish, right? I think Zostand is popular already by saying is actually becoming. I guess I'm wrong, right? So go ahead and use any state management library of your choice. So guys, this is context API. So now we have done a lot of work. So let's ensure our app is battle tested. Let's ensure everything works just fine. So let's create two profiles, just some dummy profiles, right? Profiles we can delete and edit and play around with, right? So we just paste this. Good. Our logic works fine here. We are cleared. Let's create one more, right? Right. Okay, good. Thank God the email was unique. So we basically have two profiles we can play around with. Let's test our edit functionality. Let's say updated, updated. Let's go ahead and say updated again, right? And over here, let's say updated again, right? So we update this. Okay, gosh, it's an email, so we don't need this, right? So we should. It works just fine. I mean, see how smooth our app is. So we basically implemented an update. Now let's we created, we updated. Let's delete. Yes, delete. It works, right? It works. It works. Context API is everything is in good shape, right? Good. We edited already. So we created, we edited, and then all our data are being fetched. So you guys can see our app is working just fine. So now we have done a lot. I didn't push the changes. I guess I'm going to zoom out now so we can get a good view. Don't worry, let me just try to stretch, right? Okay, I'm coming. Let me see. I'm trying to pull down. I guess this is all I can pull down. Oh gosh, coming. Oh gosh, this is basically all I can pull down. All right, guys, this is basically all I can pull down. So I think we zoom out now so we can get a better view where I can make the commits for you guys to see. I think we'll have a better view like this. Okay, let me see if we can get more space. Yeah, we're getting more space here. I guess that's the best we can go. Okay, good. We have better space here. So we have done quite a lot, guys. We've done quite a lot that I haven't pushed. Both the React.js build and then the first React.js build and this context API build. I haven't pushed them yet. All right, our app is in good shape, right? So you guys are going to see, I'm going to deploy the context API folder. That is the folder we are going to be deploying, and our app is going to work just perfectly. So the next thing we're going to do is let's commit and push, right? So let's see how we're going to structure our commits. All right, guys, we're going to structure our commits. We're going to basically clump them into two, right? We're going to push. All right, we have changes in the HTML folder as well. Okay, guys, I guess we made some updates, right? While we're building, yeah, we made some updates. I corrected some errors. Okay, so let's first of all deploy the HTML files. So I showed you guys already. Just use this plus button. In case you don't understand what I'm doing here, I'm trying to make a commit to GitHub. I'm staging my files here. So git add, I'm basically adding them individually. Juniors, beginners will just do git add all, git add dash dash all, or git add dot, and just push everything together, right? But it's not prepared that way, especially when you're working with a team. This is basically a bulky build, a large build without push. So that's why I'm basically even pushing them in three batches. I'm pushing this push. I'm going to make the commits in three batches. The HTML files go in one batch, the React.js file go in another batch, and then the React.js context API files go in one final batch. Right? It's best practice to keep your commits as tiny as possible for as you don't have to overdo it, right? You don't have to commit for every small thing you do, but it's basically you using your logic and your initiative, right? That's it. So you just calculate. Don't worry, you're going to understand it, right? But try to keep your commits as bit size as possible. For every related changes you make, you explain what that commit does, what the change does, what did you change. You keep your commits as bit as possible. Make as much commit and keep, right? The moment you push, all those commits get pushed. So you don't have to push after every commit. As you make a change, you make a commit, it stayed, right? It stays, and then that commit is different. The changes you made on that commit is available. So it's easier for somebody on your team, maybe your team lead, to review your pushes, your PRs, or your commits, right? It's easier for somebody to get a hold of what you implemented. So ensure to keep your commits as bit size as possible. For every related task, make a commit, right? So now these are the HTML pages. We commit them together. The React.js pages we commit together, and then the React.js context API, the components, the pages, and everything we commit together. right? So we have staged. We're splitting our terminal instead of creating another one. So commit, right? This is how you make commit, right? It's is it refactor? Yeah, these ones are refactor. Should I call them refactor or fixes? I don't think we had a bug, so it's refactor. Refactor should work, right? So refactor, and then we say changes. Let me see, what changes did we make? You basically review your changes here, right? So it's just a single liner, I guess. Yeah, just a little change, right? Just a single liner. Yeah, it's just a single liner in both files. So refactor should be a proper keyword, right, guys? So changes in the HTML client folder, right? Changes in the HTML client folder, we hit, and then that commit is done. So we wait for our source control area to get updated. Then we can now basically stage all the React.js files. They are kind of much. Wow, we got a lot to stage, guys. So let's stage them, right? So stage them. There's a better way to do this, guys. There's a better way to do this, right? So we can just stage the folder, right? We can say git add forward slash React.js client, right? So React.js client, I just remembered there's a better way to do this. So we stage everything inside of that folder. So you guys are going to see this is better. Everything inside of that React.js folder gets staged, right? So let's scroll down. You can see it automatically got staged for us without us adding everything. So React.js clients, context API are the ones that are yet to be staged. So I just showed you guys how to stage a whole folder, right? I mean, so much value, guys, so much value. So we're done with that. We have staged it. Let's now commit dash m refactor, right? Changes in the React.js. Not changes, it's not refactor. This is a fresh build, right? It is a fresh build. So we can say chore, right? Completed the React.js build, right? Completed the React.js client build, right? So we hit, and then now let's stage the React.js client folder. Let's hit tab. Maybe we'll get the answer. Good. So Git was able to recognize that that is the folder we haven't staged yet. So we just stage everything inside of that folder. So they will move from changes to staged changes, right? Stage changes is now empty. Stage changes is now 23. So this is how to stage a whole folder. Let me go back. You just use your arrow keys. You go to previous commands. So React.js client context API. I want to go to the previous commit command. All right. So completed the React.js. Completed the context API version of the React.js build, right? Completed the context API version of the React.js build. So we have basically done our three commits. Let's wait for it to get completed. So guys, we can now push to GitHub or push to GitHub, and then we go host the context API folder, the context API version of the project on Vercel. So we're waiting for the push. The files are heavy, all right, but it seems we have good network. Our push is done, guys. Our push is done, right? So guys, we've pushed to GitHub. Let's go to GitHub now. Let's go to GitHub and check our project, right? This is the demo build. We want the live version, live, right? It's the live version that we worked on. You guys are going to see, it's going to show that we made a push just very recently. So our page is currently loading, right? Good. So this is the live version repo. That was the demo repo. So you guys are going to see 2 minutes ago, our pushes came over here. So now let's go to Vercel, right? Let's go to Vercel and host the context API version of our app. So I can show you guys how to host React.js applications, right? So Vercel is loading. I showed you guys how to host applications in the HTML build. So if you want to learn how to host applications in the HTML, sorry, if you want to learn how we hosted the HTML app, the HTML version of our app, you simply check out the description of this video. You're going to see the link to the complete series. You watch the complete series. This tutorial series is stuff with so much value. Explore the backend, explore the HTML build, learn how we did everything. Just enjoy, right? Make the best of the series. So now we want to add a new project, not a domain. We want to deploy a new project, right? So good. This is the folder we want to deploy, right? This is the repo. It's basically showing us our repos, right? This is the repo we want to deploy. I hit this, and then it brings it. It's kind of naming our project for us. Let's call it context API. Let's call it React.js dash context API, right? So developer profiles project live React.js context API. So we need to set our root directory to, you see the various folders. The server folder was the back end. So we set to this. This is the folder we want to deploy. And then we hit continue, right? So it's recognized it's a React app bootstrapped with Vite, right? I don't know if it recognized it was React, but I know it recognized it was a Vite bootstrapped app. So good, we have set our root folder where the React app we want to host is. Then no environmental variables. It's okay like this. We hit deploy, and it should deploy in just some minutes, right? So our deployment should be done in just some minutes. I don't expect a bug, right? We're going to see our app go live. Okay, so basically the process of deploying both the HTML build and the React.js build is basically the same thing. You just select the folder, right? You just select the folder. So our HTML build is live, guys. This is beautiful. So let's go over and then let's hit the live link. Let's go check it out. It's live. We can exploit, we can create profiles, delete profiles. It's live, guys. Let's go over. This is our live app now. This is our live app, guys. Let's just do some dummy stuff, right? Just some dummy stuff, right? Okay, dummy stuff again, and then it works, guys. It works. It works. So let's create one more so we can edit and delete again, right? Just some. I guess this should be somebody's email. Okay, let me use this. Good. So hit, right? It works again. So guys, this is just awesome. So we can now edit, right? We edit this. We say edited, right? Okay, we say edited again, and then we hit. It just works, guys. It works. So you can see edited, right? It works, guys. So let's go and edit this one again. Let's copy some let's see, yeah, let's get some tangible, some sensible piece of data, and then we paste, right? So this, and then Control A, Control V, we send, right? It works. You can see it got updated. So edit works, create works. Let's try delete. No thanks, right? Delete, no thanks. Let's hit this, delete. It's going to get deleted, right? This is awesome, guys. We hit delete again, right? It's going to get deleted again. Guys, our app works, and that completes the React.js build. You can't wait for the Next.js build, right? The React.js build has been eventful. I promise the Next.js build is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome, guys. So the Next.js build will be, I don't know if it's going to be the last stuff in the series, but probably it's going to be it's probably is going to be the last video in the series, right? I'm thinking of migrating the code bases to TypeScript. So it's important you learn how to use TypeScript in this generation. JavaScript is basically not that used in enterprise level settings anymore. So using JavaScript is just something enterprise grade software development teams. I don't know if there's any enterprise level team still using TypeScript. Sorry, still using JavaScript. TypeScript is the real deal at the moment. So I might just continue the series and convert this code bases to TypeScript, or I'm going to release them as standalone videos. However, it's going to be, guys, smash the like button. I believe you got so much value. Hit the subscribe button. Don't miss any video. I'm gonna be coming with more amazing, awesome builds, right? Awesome builds than this one. You can follow me on social media as well. My links will be inside of the description. That's it for this video, guys. See you guys in the next JS 13 build coming up next. Bye bye, guys. Love you.